Hi everyone and welcome to this week's book review. So this week I'm going to be reviewing this book here. It's The New Wilderness by Diane Cook, and it's actually been shortlisted for this year's Booker Prize. Now it's not the sort of book I would normally review or even read. It's quite dark and morbid in places, and I quite like upbeat enjoyable ones, or actually fantasy as well, and this really is completely different to anything I've read before. So what's this book actually about? Well, it's set in a sort of near future world, it's where global warming's gone a bit crazy and all the world's completely overpopulated. So all of the people are living in the city, and this is where every person in the world lives. And there's no animals there apart from really feral ones. There's no trees except for ones enclosed by gates. And it's really overpopulated, so they're not celebrating birth anymore, and lots of people die. There's other areas of this world as well, so you have the woodlots where people go to chop the wood, and you have the farms. And importantly, you've got an area called the wilderness, and this is the last natural area on Earth. And it's where most of the remaining animals are. So the story focuses around two main characters. You have Bee, who's a mother, and she's desperate, along with her partner Glenn, to get their daughter out of the city. Her daughter Agnes is slowly dying, so they come up with a bit of a crazy plan to start an experiment to see if people can actually live in this wilderness state and be at one with nature without destroying it. So they start off on this experiment. But the only catch is, to live in nature, they have to live as hunter-gatherers and move on and hunt and live exactly as they would have done thousands of years ago. So this is sort of what drew me to this book, because it's very interesting, and I just love the idea of nature and actually going back to our roots a bit and just respecting our natural world. So, like I say, the story comes from two main viewpoints, but they're actually quite different, because Bee has grown up in the city, so coming into the wilderness she has lots of city viewpoints. And her daughter Agnes has grown up in the wild. She moves at the age of 4, so her viewpoints are actually really contrasting to her mother's, and at some points it's actually quite shocking. So the idea of mother-daughter relationships runs through the book, and it focuses on the idea of how far you would go and what you would do for the people that you love. Now the author goes into quite a lot of detail about their life in the wild and this group of 20 individuals who've moved there as an experiment. And she's really done her research and paints a really vivid picture of what life is like in the wilderness for these 20 people participating in the experiment. They're all meant to be experts, but you soon come to realise that they really aren't experts and they're learning as they go along. But the author's clearly done a research about what it's like scraping animal skins and using all the tools and actually living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Now it's set in North America, and I do wonder what the rest of the world must be like, because it's not mentioned at all in the book. But if this is North America, what could England be like? Are the islands around England the only places where wildlife live? Or is everywhere in England and the UK the city? So, one of the main sets of characters you come across quite early on are a group of people called the Rangers. And these are the men who man the posts dotted around the wilderness. And it's from these posts that the characters can collect mail which has been left for them by relatives in the city, and it becomes a sort of lifeline connecting them to the modern world. But now this comes at a bit of a cost, because these rangers not only help them connect to the city, but they also lay down the rules for their way of life in the wild, because they can't forget that this is an experiment. So these rangers tell them where they can go, what they can do, what litter they have to pick up along the way, and they really control their whole way of life. And it sort of makes you question, is this freedom in the wilderness really actually freedom, or is it just another type of restriction like it was in the city? Are they ever truly going to be free? And I thought that was really interesting, and it was slightly creepy as well, just having all these rangers watching them all the time. And it sort of made me think it's a bit like a theme park, something a bit like Jurassic Park, but without the dinosaurs. and because you never know when something's going to happen, but they're constantly being watched. It's sort of a controlled environment, but at the same time it's really not, and danger does lurk around every corner. As the book goes on, you do soon realise that as well as being beautiful, this wilderness can also kill, and nature's sort of shown from two sides. So it's shown as something that you can't live without, because the city is completely overpopulated, people are dying, there's nothing natural left there. But then when you get to the nature, it's also really dangerous, and you are living hand to mouth every day, and even nature can kill you. So it's sort of this balance of how can you live with nature and how can you live without it. And I think that's one of the themes that Cook has running through the book. So I actually found Cook's writing style to be quite brutal. It was a bit like Lord of the Flies, where you sort of, well, not in that they kill each other, but just in the way they deal with death. So I found myself getting lulled into a false sense of security a bit with these characters, because you try to like them and you think, oh, they're going to get on really well after a while, and they're going to care for each other in the wild and look out for each other. But you soon realise that when it comes to death, they really just don't care. And when somebody's died, they move on straight away, and it's just so alien to us. I found it really hard to actually like any of the characters. I think the only person I actually liked in the book is Glenn, who's the partner of Bee. And they just seem like aliens to us, and you do wonder, do they actually care that somebody has died, or is it just another everyday occurrence for them? But I think this has been done by Cook on purpose, because the characters have been changed so much by what's happened to them in the wild, and they're living hand to mouth, that they only truly care about those really closest to them and about those things that keep them alive, including the manual, which is quite interesting because that's the book that lays down their rules. But they seem to care about that over everything. I suppose it gives them a sense of normality in their life. And it's just a really interesting storyline and the way it's set up. So to summarise, overall I found the book to be pretty depressing actually. It is thought-provoking, and Cook's clearly trying to make a point about being one with nature and looking after the natural world, which is one of the reasons that I got drawn to the book in the first place. But if you want a cosy read with likeable characters and something with a really good storyline that you can just read and escape to, then this really isn't for you. I probably wouldn't read another one by her just because the writing style isn't something that I really enjoy. But it has been really interesting to read, and it'll be interesting actually to see the results of the Booker Prize as it's been shortlisted. And to be honest, I won't be surprised if it wins, just because it makes such a good point about global warming. But like I say, I probably wouldn't read it again. But thanks everyone, that's this review for this week. Please tune in again. I'm hoping to do The Night Circus next, which is a book by Erin Morgenstern. It came out actually a few years ago, I think 2011, but I never actually read it at the time, and her new one's come out, The Starless Sea, and I work in a library and we've actually got it in, and I thought it looked quite good, and one of my friends has actually recommended The Night Circus to me, so I think I'm going to review that next. So please keep tuned.